What's going on, Imperials? It's Emperor Cubone here. So the Nintendo quarterly earnings report has come out, and it may be a bit boring to some people, but I find the sales numbers of different series to be fascinating. It gets down to the hard facts of how many people decided this was worth their time, and how quickly it amassed said revenue can, in turn, tell you how enthusiastic people might be for the next product. So, as much as I like looking into all of the Nintendo series, let's check out what the Pokémon sales numbers could mean for the future of the franchise. Now, I looked at the Pokémon figures a few years ago at this point, but of course things have changed since then, and with the Switch 2 on the horizon, I think these numbers could give us some valuable insights. For instance, the last time I looked at the sales numbers, Sword and Shield were still in the 4th best-selling place Pokémon games, but now they're all the way up at number 2. That's right, the Gen 8 games have not only surpassed the pair of entries on the unfathomably popular DS system, but they've now beaten out Gen 2 as well. Gold and Silver were riding high on the wave of Pokémania from the 90s, and easily raked in a cool 23, nearly 24 million units sold. And that was when people thought these might be the final Pokémon games ever made. It was pretty well understood that Pokémon could never really reach those heights again, except now it has. And honestly, with games that were pretty lukewarm in their reception. But then Gen 8 just easily surpassed Johto with 26.6 million units under their belt. Now, that might be a bit shocking for some of the Galar haters, however, they didn't stop there, because Gen 9 basically did the exact same thing. Scarlet and Violet have put up a nearly identical 26.38 million units in half the time of Sword and Shield, so we know that it wasn't a fluke. Pokémon is just as popular as ever on the Switch, only losing out to the first generation games, and honestly, if Switch 2 hadn't cut off their growth, I think they might have eventually surpassed the originals. And it's still not off the table even with that happening, since Switch 2 can play all of the older games too, so Gens 8 and 9 could still be bought as long as they're on the shelves during Switch 2's life. Additionally, if Scarlet and Violet can maintain their lead over Sword and Shield, then they might be able to overtake them as the best-selling Pokémon titles on the Switch, which has never been done before with a second set of games overtaking the first on the same console. And honestly, I feel like they're pushing for that to happen, because in the days since the report has come out, I've seen Scarlet and Violet randomly advertised over 2 years after it came out. Maybe you've seen some of those commercials too, so they are definitely chasing that clout that usurping Sword and Shield would bring. So we'll talk about the possible implications of what that could mean, but I have to point out that the same overperformance transfers over to the remake games as well. Even though I think they're a solid showing, you never really hear anyone talk about Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee anymore, but despite their lack of relevancy, they've sold over 15 million copies. Just a few years ago, that was at 12 million, meaning that they're easily selling 750,000 copies a year or so, which is far more than I would expect from what are thought of to be lesser titles. And for reference, the game that they're derived from, Pokémon Yellow, had lifetime sales of 14.64 million. Pikachu's special version was the undisputed champ of all the sequels or remakes or third games out there. Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire did come close, but Yellow remained on top until now, being unseated by the newer iteration. And it doesn't stop there, because the other remakes, Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, sold over 15 million copies as well, and even Legends Arceus did 15 million despite coming out 2 months after the other Sinnoh games, and Paldea getting announced a month later. So despite their best efforts at sabotaging it, the Hisui region was more popular than any third version, sequel, or remake from generations past. I actually do believe that about the popularity of Legends, but I've got to wonder how wildly popular the other ones might be, or if it's just the fact that the Switch is in all likelihood going to become the best-selling Nintendo console of all time. And it's just easier for people to say, I'll give it a shot. And that's great that so many people are able to be reached, seemingly now more than ever. I mean, so many of Nintendo's franchises are shattering their own records, even their top brands like Mario and Zelda. So it really is a testament to how popular Pokémon was back when it started that it's only just now approaching that level again. But it's possible that Pokémon might learn the wrong lessons from the successes on the Switch. I do have faith that Nintendo at large might be able to ride this cresting wave, But Pokémon is unique in that they have multiple bosses, being under the Game Freak banner as well, so Pokémon can get pulled in many different directions and therefore get nowhere fast. No matter how much Nintendo might want to change things, they don't have complete control, so the better question is, what will Game Freak do with this information? It's all speculation, of course, but given the big dollar signs, they could think that quality of product is irrelevant. Sword and Shield were some of the most controversial upon release, yet they seemed to sell incredibly well. However, some people thought, well, maybe that unhappiness will transfer over and have impact on the Gen 9 sales, but that didn't happen either. Scarlet and Violet were some of the most lucrative Pokémon games on launch, making tons of money in their first days. So there's a non-zero chance that they'll look at the huge sales numbers, and then back at the buggy mess that Paldea launched with and say, well, I guess we can get away with anything, and continue to ship out unfinished games because they think they can fix it in post. The practice of downloadable content grafting on fixes for the games after the fact only promotes this strategy further, and with the Sinnoh remakes selling almost as well as the generation they're based on, while being argued as rather low effort as well, they could take that as proof that they're untouchable and just give up on any quality control. But that is a worst-case scenario. I do have the tiniest glimmer of faith that they might be capable of learning from their mistakes, and that's largely because of the Legends series of games. Number 1, the delaying of Legends ZA was huge, and displayed that they can indeed show restraint, which honestly impressed me. I figured that they would have a burning desire to make money every single year, even if that showed diminishing returns, but they did manage to flip it around. And secondly, Legends Arceus is another reason to be optimistic, because they tried something so different, so new and out of the box, when nobody expected them to ever change a thing, and people loved it. And even better is that they have the hard sales numbers to back it up, with Arceus easily selling more than any other version that didn't launch a generation. And that's when they had the rug completely pulled out from under them. So clearly Game Freak has seen some potential here as they are making another one so soon. They didn't do that with Let's Go after all, and I think the numbers will bear that out once we see the sales numbers of ZA after it comes out. It probably won't surpass Arceus since the second offerings on the same system never really do better, but hey, we could be surprised. Maybe Mega Evolution could put it over the top, who knows? So I don't think we'll have to worry about Legends games going anywhere, but also the other remakes are pretty surely here to stay too. People were a bit worried for a while there after Gen 5 didn't give us one as expected, but the remakes in Gen 7 and 8 have sold well enough to cement the fact that they can pretty much always repackage their old work and make money. Sometimes more than they ever expected. So as cool as it might be to have remixed versions like the Legends games, we better get used to the idea that we'll be having the more standard games about once a generation too. For better or for worse, depending on how you like them. And you know, it's not just the mainline games, the spin-offs have been doing pretty well, maybe not all of them as stellar as you might expect on the Switch, but new Pokémon Snap easily outsold every single Xenoblade Chronicles game on the Switch, if that helps to put it in perspective for you. Sure, Detective Pikachu Returns didn't exactly fly off the shelves, however the Mystery Dungeon remake did do better than the last entry in the series, Super Mystery Dungeon on the 3DS. So if it was good enough to try this style again before, then surely an improvement would warrant revisiting Mystery Dungeon again, although weirdly enough they haven't tried again on the Switch, so maybe they're a bit more tepid on spin-offs going full speed. But when a fancified port of a Game Boy Advance game can outsell Gale of Darkness, that's definitely worth another look. Especially if they're cheaper to make as I suspect them to be. So I would not be surprised at all if Switch 2 were to dive deeper into the realm of Pokémon spin-offs. But when looking at the almost shockingly high sales of the games that are, frankly, some of the most contentious and debated ever in the franchise, it does make you wonder how they might proceed. Will they follow the money and continue to put out subpar products? Or will they take their good fortune and reinvest it into making better games? I'm hoping it's the latter, because if you disappoint fans long enough, they'll stop coming back, and then all of that money will dry up for good. Because, the 26.38 million units times the $60 for a new Switch game is over $1.5 billion. Now, I know that's not all gross profit, obviously, they don't get the whole $60 to line their pockets, but with much bigger numbers than any generation since the first one, they've gotta be raking it in now more than ever. So hopefully they'll take some of that dough and, say, develop an open world game that actually runs smoothly without the floor glitching out, you know, just a thought. But the whole open world concept and the Legends games in general are evidence that they just might have learned that they have to innovate a little bit and they can't keep letting down people indefinitely. So the future could just be looking up as the next great Pokémon craze is almost upon us. But I guess that kinda depends a bit on how well the Switch 2 does. What do you think could be in store for the future of Pokémon based on their more recent sales figures? Let me know down in the comments. Also be sure to leave a like, share this video, and subscribe so that you too can become an Imperial today. And until next time, stay grounded!